That'd be awesome. James says, I'd like to add an audience mic or two. What mic do you recommend for that purpose? I'll throw that out to the crowd too. I will tell you that I have used multiple microphones in this scenario, and I'm happy to share that along with you. Yoink. Let's open up a web browser. Have a little look-see over on Sweetwater. I'll show you what it is. I get in trouble when I show Amazon, so I don't get in trouble like by moderators. I get in trouble by the audience. They don't like me shopping on Amazon. So sweetwater.com here in the U.S., that's where we can look at gear. It's not necessarily the best price in the world, but it's a great place to look at all the stuff. You can also go to B&H. By the way, B&H is a BirdDog partner, and they're friends of ours. So, okay, so the first, what is it? So I didn't have any money when I first started playing around with this, and I went out to just do some like market research, and I just wanted to get a fairly level, flat, not bassy. I don't need any of that type of microphone, and I landed on choosing the Behringer C2 pencil microphones. They're just little condenser mics, and I set them up on either side of the stage, and I pointed them at the audience. And these are great microphones. You can see, I mean, I say great. They're great for the price. So they're $60 for a pair, which is like, whoa, red flag. But they actually work really well. I have these currently at home because we changed over to a different microphone, which I'll talk about next. But these little guys, super easy. They need phantom power. They come in a nice little carrying case. They come with everything you need to kind of get them set up. No need for a windscreen when you're using audience microphones unless you're outside. But they're just a pair of pencil mics. They have a fairly flat pattern, okay, pickup pattern. It's just basically all around, and it rejects everything past the actual condenser microphone and back. It does pick up a little bit behind, by the way, so just heads up, if you're putting these on stage, you might get some stage noise out of them. But they work pretty well, and they come in this little case, and that was fine and dandy. So the Behringer C2 microphones were a pretty good choice, and for the price, I was kind of happy with that. Now, I then went away from C2 because we went with a different one. But I did end up buying I did buy a single Behringer, I think it's called the B5. Is that right? The B5 microphone. I bought this little pencil microphone as well. Very different pickup pattern. Okay? Very different pickup pattern than the C2s, I learned fairly quickly. Also comes in a fancy little carrying case, but it's $80 for one. And there's an additional filter that you can put on the end that changes the pickup pattern to slight rejection to basically an entire, what is it? Omnidirectional pickup pattern. Okay. So that little filter on the back basically makes it an omnidirectional pickup pattern. Now, there are lots of YouTube videos online explaining the differences between, or explaining the advantages and disadvantages of each of these microphones that I'm sharing with you. But if you're just looking for something inexpensive, these microphones can be placed in the middle of the auditorium. They don't have to be placed on the stage. Be placed in the middle of the auditorium, either from the ceiling, they can point down. You can place them anywhere, and they'll pick up the audience, and you don't have to be on stage because they pick up sound behind them as well. So the B5 is a little bit better, in my opinion. I only have one of these. I might get a second one just to have a pair. But the B5, pretty simple microphone, relatively decent pickup pattern. I would say, and does Sweetwater do this? Yeah. So we have the spec sheet here for the B5. That does not seem to be downloading. I clicked on it, but we'll maybe it'll kick off here in a second. But anyways, the spec sheet will show you the actual pattern, and it will show you the new tab. Let's go. Chip, tap, chip. That's probably why it's not loading. So what is going on here? Oh, because I clicked on it and it tried to load it. Okay, so you can get it off the Behringer website as well, by the way, the actual stuff. But it's useful to have that data. But quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, if you're about to drop a bunch of money on a microphone, definitely use your definitely use options like Lens Rentals or something like that where they can let you borrow it for the weekend, and then you don't have to pay full sticker price, and you can kind of decide for yourself if you want to do something along that road. So B5 was not too bad. It's a little nicer than the C2s naturally, and you have that option to turn them into basically, omnidirectional microphones. The next thing, somebody was gracious enough to give me this microphone. I hope he gave it to me. I need to look back in the communication with him. But he sent me a DBX RTA-M reference microphone, which is this guy. Let me see here. Yes, I believe it's this one. And this microphone is $125. Obviously, you would be using this to ring out rooms and what have you. But I have found that it works great as a room reference microphone for streaming. What we do is we mount this in the back of an auditorium, and we use this as the ambient sound for the stream to go out onto YouTube and whatever. So as the group is interacting or singing or moving around or responding or whatever's happening, this microphone means that the effects that are happening in the room can also be captured and be translated into the effects that are happening, be translated for the stream. What I love about this, okay, now you got me preaching. So what I love about this idea is that if they're in the back of the room, this reference microphone can actually pick up the sound that the sound guy is making in the room, okay? And you can dial this in or out of that stream as you see fit, but it gives a genuine room feel. So if the sound guy, and this is where I come in, I'm running sound and I'm running, like a reverb or an echo, or I'm running a decay or a delay or whatever it is that I'm doing on vocals or instruments or whatever, and I'm piping that through. So in particular, let's just talk about vocals real quick. When I'm running vocals, I like to expand the sound so it doesn't sound like they're just talking into a microphone, okay? I like to widen it out a little bit. It gives a little bit of forgiveness in the vocal. I like to add a little bit of like artificial room reverb to the voice. When I do that, it widens the voice. It provides a fair bit of depth when you're listening to it. The problem is that if you add that same effect to the stream, it sounds so artificial. It does not sound like it sounds like in the room, because the room is also giving back, reverb. It's also dynamic in terms of how the sound is being absorbed into the audience and in all these bags of water that are sitting in the seats. And so as the sound decays, as it passes over the room and into the ears of the listeners, you want to provide that sound of what it actually sounds like in the room, not the digital effect, which is what it sounds like, straight from the board. So a reference microphone like this one can help you provide that context that's happening in the room onto the stream. Now, it's not a perfect one-for-one. It does sound a little bit artificial, but it's way better than adding the effect directly on the vocalist on the stream. So having a reference microphone do the effects, the room effects, and it's way simpler, meaning that your streamer doesn't have to be a proficient sound guy to do this. He just has to understand the two levels, the main microphone level and the ambient room level. Okay, so if somebody's on stage speaking, you don't really want a lot of reference microphone, right? Because it's going to catch the people shuffling and moving in their seats and the kids crying and the pages turning and the phones going off and all that crap that you don't want in your digital world. But if you have audience participation or interaction or anything like that, a reference microphone like this running in the background, mixed into the mix can be really helpful, because it will give context to what is actually being heard in the room, and it will provide the natural reverb that let's say somebody's speaking on stage, it will provide that natural reverb that's already happening in the room, which will widen his voice and will not make it sound like he's talking into just like a microphone like this all the time. You know, which it's unnatural to listen to something like that. It doesn't make any sense. Now, in a studio, okay, I've got sound dampening. I've got this is all kind of set up for me to talk to you through like a broadcast microphone, kind of like a radio or kind of like a podcast, right? But if that's not what you're doing online, if that's not what you're streaming with, then, and you want to provide context as to like, here's what's actually being heard and what's actually happening in the room, a reference microphone like this is really helpful. Now, it won't pick up a bunch of the low end, and so you're going to need to know that if you're like, if you've got drums and you're getting a big heavy kick drum, this isn't going to pick that up because microphone is not wide enough to handle that. But it will definitely do natural reverb, and it will allow you to not have to use the heavy effects that you're probably already using inside the house. So those are the three that I have direct use of. I went from cheap, then I went to like not quite as cheap, and then I went to, this one's $125. Somebody gave it to me though, so it's super cheap. But a good little measurement microphone. And you can also use it to ping the room, by the way, to white noise or pink noise the room. That's what that microphone is actually built for. But I find that it works exceptionally well when providing context for streaming. Exceptionally well. Like if I wanted you to hear all of the P4K fan, I can hear it running. If I wanted you to hear the ambient sound of the air conditioning running, if I wanted you to hear the creaks of my chair, I would get that microphone and point it at me, and it would pick all that stuff up because that's what I'm hearing. That's what is happening in this room. But this microphone rejects all of that. It even rejects my proximity effect of like getting all up on the microphone. It keeps it pretty level. This microphone specifically, and don't get me started on the RE20, but this microphone particularly is great for this function. I think it's better than the SM7B, but that is a discussion for another day, not for today. And I love the SM7B. Don't get me wrong, I do love it. It's a really cool mic, and I've wanted it just to have it. I want it for my home studio, but I don't need that. Actually, I'm using the B5 at my home studio. Believe it or not. I'm using the C2. Why am I not using the B5? Oh, the B5 is here? I got too many microphones, folks.